You're listening to the Unwritable Rant podcast with your host, author, and occasional misanthrope, Juliette Miranda. Go to theunwritablerant.com and you can subscribe on iTunes or connect with the show on Facebook and Twitter.
Hi there, y'all. It's Juliette Miranda. Welcome to episode 99 of the Unwritable Rant podcast. We are creeping our way up to 100, y'all. So let's fill in that gap with a little bit of a toast. What do you say? Fill them up, raise them up, and let's say cheers. Whew. Oh, wow. Y'all, today I am drinking Knob Creek Single Barrel Binny's Private Select Bourbon. Batch 4782C, if you want to get ultra specific about it. My Binny's guy kind of had to talk me into this one, because I'm always a little bit reluctant to drink Knob Creek. Not because it's a bad bourbon. For me, it's a little bit like choosing Coke over Pepsi. Standard Knob Creek bourbon is just fine. It's just not to my taste. But my Binny's guy encouraged me to have an open mind and give this Private Select a chance, and I gotta say, it's impressive. They're not kidding when they say this is hand-selected. There's a label on the bottle that tells you everything you need to know right down to the rickhouse, rack, and specific barrel that this was selected from. This particular batch was aged exactly 12 years and 6 months. Now, this bourbon is barrel strength at 130 proof. And that can be a little bit daunting if you're not expecting it. That first sip does kind of hit you in the face a little bit. But just breathe, y'all. Take it in. This bourbon is strong but smooth. Initially, you're going to taste a little bit of roasted corn, and then it smooths out into that oaky sort of vanilla flavor. But what really keeps me drinking this bourbon is this fascinating taste at the back end, kind of like cotton candy. I don't know how Knob Creek managed to pull that out of the barrel, but there it is, and it is making what would normally be something of a winter bourbon into a total summer drink for me. So my guy has been out of town this week, which has given me plenty of opportunities to do all of the weird and wacky nonsense that I'd rather he not see. It usually starts with me, a brick of cheese, and a bottle of bourbon. And from there, well, anything is really possible. I will say, I'm always a little bit on edge when my guy is out of town. Not so much for my own safety, because I feel fairly confident that I can take down whatever monster might try to force its way onto my turf. Because I'll tell you, I've got excellent aim, and I can wield a knife like Jack the Ripper should I need to. It's really the, non-human monsters that freak me out. Things like our washing machine, garage door, and furnace, they all pose mechanical threats that I have absolutely zero skill in dealing with. Oh, and I realize how absurd that sounds, believe me, but it is always when my guy is away that stuff falls apart. And that means I'm the one who is left waving off a cloud of smoke or pulling bits of plaster out of my hair. I'm convinced it's a conspiracy. I am. It's set up either by the appliance overlords or, more likely, our leasing office, whom we are at the total whim of. You see, they determine what shitty appliances wind up in our townhouse, which probably explains why I found an Acme sticker on the back of our refrigerator. Still, I do not let fear rule my life. Which is why I decided just this week to surprise my guy with a big dinner when he came home from his business trip. And y'all, was he ever surprised? We have a vacation to New Orleans coming up next month. So in anticipation, I thought it would be fun to make a full Creole meal, complete with all of our favorite dishes, blackened chicken, red beans and rice, and even a crawfish boil. So the day before, I prepared. I ordered us up some live crawfish. It is the only way to do a crawfish boil. And although it's pricey, it's so worth it. I will say, however, that it is a little bit unnerving to open a box and find a sack teeming with 5 pounds of what are essentially dirty little live lobsters crawling out at you. But that's something I can handle. So I got all of them squared away in a cooler, and I got to work in the kitchen. The success of this elaborate meal was going to be all based on timing. I wanted everything to be ready within minutes of my guy walking in the front door. And that meant I had to start early, because red beans and rice takes a good 6 hours to cook. So along the way, I'm managing the prep work for my blackened chicken, I'm pre-cooking rice, and I'm cleaning up after every step. Because believe it or not, while I may be something of a train wreck when it comes to other areas of our home, I am extremely organized in the kitchen. Unlike my guy, who has the uncanny ability to make delicious meals while simultaneously dirtying every single pot and cutting board in the kitchen. He'll make up a batch of chili, and I'll find things that I didn't even know we had, like an egg slicer and a melon baller stuck to the countertop. But as for me, I wanted perfection for this meal. I wanted my guy to walk into the house and smell New Orleans. I wanted him to immediately feel at home with an amazing meal. I didn't want him to have to lift a finger. Just relax, have a Sazerac, and know that I missed him. So the clock is now ticking. My guy has texted me to let me know that his plane landed, and this means I have about 1 hour to complete my meal. And y'all, everything was going great. The red beans were perfect. The blackened chicken was blackened and warming in the oven. And I had just pulled out my large metal boiling pot to start the water for the crawfish. I suppose it's important here to mention that this large metal boiling pot was not a high-quality item. Honestly, it may as well have been a tin can. I bought it for the express purpose of beating the hell out of it. And it was my go-to pot for boiling large quantities of pasta, lobster, and yes, crawfish. So I fill that sucker full of enough water to boil 5 pounds of crawfish, slap it down on the electric coil stove burner, and I crank that thing up to high. And once it's boiling, I retrieved my doomed little crawfish from the cooler my cat had been keeping a very sharp eye on. Those critters were alive and crawling as I cut open their net sack, and none too pleased about being dumped into a pot of rapidly boiling water. But I shook them out, waved goodbye, and turned around to locate my large straining spoon. Just as I turned my back, I hear an ear-splitting crackle and boom. Honestly, I thought a bomb had gone off in my kitchen. I look back in time to see a ball of neon yellow and electric white fire engulf my shitty boiling pot and stretch up to the grates of the exhaust fan above the stove. It was as if Satan himself had set up a showing of the Pink Floyd laser light show in my kitchen, one that had all the potential of burning out my retinas and my epidermis. I started screaming, but I couldn't move to save my life. I didn't know what the fuck to do. Do I stop, drop, and roll? Call the fire department? I hadn't replaced our fire extinguisher since our little water heater incident last winter, so I was officially out of ideas and scared as hell. Fortunately, the crawfish came to my rescue. I'm not kidding. Whatever had caused that weird explosion had sent so much heat coursing through my pot that the already boiling water essentially erupted with the flames, and the next thing I know, there was a literal tsunami of crawfish heading my way. Water gushes from the pot. Dozens of crawfish swell over the pot and stove and shoot across the kitchen like angry red bullets. One of them whizzed past my goddamn ear. I finally located my senses and ran to the circuit breaker to cut the power in the kitchen. Whatever that weird fire was had burned out, but I was taking no chances. Even with the lights out, I could see that my kitchen had been destroyed in all new and appalling ways. The floor resembled a Louisiana bayou, a slithering combination of the red beans I'd accidentally knocked on the floor and 5 fucking pounds of mud bugs. That tin can boiling pot of water was fused to the burner. Scorch marks decorated the wall and exhaust range cover, and although the heavenly aroma of andouille and Old Bay lingered, it now mingled with the metallic stench of ozone. This was what greeted my guy. That and me, of course, the anti-Donna Reed. I plant a big kiss on his face, give him a squeeze, and suggest we go out for dinner. I was thinking Mexican, but I was open to suggestion. After a bit of research and an annoyed chat with our leasing office maintenance crew, we have since learned that the stove explosion was caused by the elements in the heating coil shorting out in a rare but not unheard of perfectly timed sequence. Which means it only makes sense that it would happen to me while I was alone. Y'all, I'll tell ya, although I am devastated at the loss of my amazing Cajun dinner, and a little bummed that I couldn't surprise my guy with it, I do take small consolation in the fact that this was the very first fire disaster I've participated in that was absolutely not my fault. And now I'm going to raise up my glass and toast to my little firefighting crawfish friends. Cheers, y'all. Oh, yeah. Oh, my God, that's good stuff. Strong, potent, but awesome. So my guy and I wound up at our town summer carnival last weekend. I adore carnivals, especially the kind of grimy ones that are held in mall parking lots. I suppose it's partly a product of my reading the book Something Wicked This Way Comes one too many times, but I just love the seedy potential of carnivals. The thought that even among all of the colorful lights and rides and fried foods, there's a small but discernible undercurrent of danger. Our local carnival was sadly as above board as they come, and held on the extensive grounds of a park with an elementary school as a backdrop. Of course, there was my guy and I wandering in after an afternoon of driveway drinking to keep things interesting. And I gotta say, if places like this truly want to uphold their whole no weapons, no drugs, no alcohol policies upon entering, they really need to pay better attention to women's purses. I'm not saying they need to go all TSA on people, but the too trusting guy who half-heartedly shined a flashlight into my purse missed one hell of a large flask full of 120 proof bourbon stuffed into a very obvious side pocket. Couple of hits off that, and my guy and I were ready to cause some trouble. The only problem was, we couldn't find any trouble to get into. Oh, we tried, believe me, we always try. But everyone in our charming little suburban carnival was in good spirits. The carnies were practically giving away prizes. Like the guy at the horse racing game, he went so far as to let me race just against my guy, so that we were guaranteed to level up my prize. Which, by the way, was a large stuffed unicorn. Because of course it was. Even the police officer we decided to bother was exceptionally nice. He was monitoring the beer garden, which wasn't really a garden at all, but a tennis court, where the only booze offered was hard fucking cider and Bud Light. And for the well-dressed crowd of people in there, all camped out in their designer packable lawn chairs and snacking on the fancy grilled chicken sandwiches from the food truck behind us, we may as well have been at an art gallery opening. It was so tame. Not even the cover band playing on the festival stage did much to liven things up. They were just moderately awful enough to be passable, and they played all of the standard, mutually agreeable tunes that people like to hear at these things. From Jump to Jesse's Girl. Ugh. This was easily the most polite, homogenized, underwhelming carnival I have ever been to. Where was the seedy undercurrent? Where were all the shady dealings and sketchy figures? This is exactly what we asked the police officer. Not that I expected him to give us a roadmap to the criminal element, but I'd hoped to at least catch a story about busting a weed deal in one of the air-conditioned bathroom buses. But he had nothing. Well, nothing but a yawn, that is. I was tempted to wave my now empty flask in his face and dare him to do something about it, just to liven the place up a little bit. But my guy can always be counted on to do just that. And he looks at the officer with complete innocence and says, "How about arresting the band for sucking so much?" You would think this would piss the officer off. But no, he just gave us a placating sort of smile and then informed us that his brother is the guitar player. Oops. Well, we figured it was in our best interest to back away slowly. And it is at this point where I see what could possibly be our salvation in this disastrously boring fair. A bingo tent. Maybe that's where all the cool kids went to hang out. Sure, it was sponsored by our local Rotary Club, but since they were offering cash prizes, I figured it might attract some of the less than savory element in our town. My guy looks at me. His eyebrows are raised, and I can tell by his expression that he is less than thrilled with this idea. He seems to be saying, "Bingo? Really?" Yes, bingo! I know from first-hand experience that bingo can be just as rowdy and raunchy as a cockfight. And I have my family to prove it. Of course, my family plays an augmented version of bingo, designed specifically to incite name-calling and fights. We like to call it cutthroat crazy bingo. The premise is simple, really. There's a pile of wrapped prizes in the center of the table. Get bingo, take a prize. When all of the prizes are gone, we keep playing. Get bingo, and you get to take a prize from someone else. The game was started by my grandmother and has been played at most every family gathering that doesn't involve fireworks. Which is for the best, really, because there is always one coveted package we will all stop at nothing to get. I've walked away from holidays battered and bruised and bitten. Like the one year, rumor circulated among the kids that the one large wrapped box contained the new Star Wars Land of the Jawas action playset. Prizes have obviously evolved since we've all gotten older. Now, the more unusually shaped the package, the better. It just serves to incite both curiosity and scheming with the ultimate hope of getting that final bingo and keeping your prize. And then there was that one year. I made the mistake of inviting my girlfriend Crazytown to a family party and inadvertently managed to give the word bingo all new meaning. I wasn't always keen on bringing her around my family, particularly once we hit our 20s and were pushing the boundaries of our friendship. She was just so unpredictable and without a filter. She could go from giving my mom gardening tips in one breath to recounting how just the night before we'd passed out half naked on her boyfriend's couch. Not the kind of thing I want my parents exposed to. Still, Crazytown was a favorite of my dad. He claimed to admire her spirit, but let's face it, what he really admired was her rack. But it was his birthday, and Crazytown had been begging me for years to invite her to one of our wild bingo parties, so I figured, what the hell? What could go wrong? Crazytown arrived on time with a bottle of champagne for my dad and carrying a bag full of bingo prizes, which certainly endeared her to my family. She immediately turns up the wattage in her smile and starts chatting up my relatives, but I wasn't entirely buying her act. Crazytown was never nice just to be nice. She was up to something. I just wasn't sure what. While she's off flirting with my dad, I start rooting through that bag of prizes she brought. Everything was wrapped, damn it, so I couldn't quite tell what things were, but one package stood out. It had a familiar sort of shape, oblong, a bit like a tube, with something that felt like a handle or a knob at one end. I've wrapped my hands around enough so-called packages to know what that thing felt like. But it couldn't be what I thought it was. It just couldn't. I mean, Crazytown was careless and a kook, but she wasn't that much of a deviant, was she? I grab my loving girlfriend by the arm and drag her away from my dad, who was enjoying her company just a little too much. And I ask her, "Where did you get those prizes from?" She claimed they came from a gift shop near her home, but I knew better. There were no gift shops anywhere near her home. And I say as much. But Crazytown just smiles, winks, and tells me not to worry. I sighed. Last time she told me not to worry, I had to drive home in nothing but my underwear. So those words had absolutely no meaning or comfort coming from her. Still, there wasn't much I could do. Whatever was in those packages was going to come out eventually, so I did the best thing I could think of. I grabbed a glass of champagne and knocked it back in one gulp. Dinner came and went with minimal inappropriate behavior, mostly because everyone was saving up their trash talking for the bingo table. And I'll tell you, it started just as soon as those prizes were spread out. Everyone gathered around the table to inspect the packages and stake claim. A large wrapped pyramid from my mother was the cause of much speculation and interest, and I breathed a sigh of relief. Perhaps Crazytown's contributions would go unnoticed, and I could quietly just collect them all for myself. Unfortunately, I was up against 14 other people who were all watching each other like raptors to see which prizes were grabbed first. And damn it, Crazytown's went fast. She'd used the shiniest, fanciest wrapping paper she could find and dressed it up with little handwritten notes like, "You want it," and "Take me." Subtlety was never really her style. My oblivious relatives loved it, and as soon as the cutthroat round started, they all began clamoring for Crazytown's prizes. An uncle grabbed the tube-shaped prize from my cousin's stash and begins waving it around. "What could it be?" he asks, running his hands up and down the length of the shaft tauntingly. It wouldn't stay in his grasp for long because my mother wrestled it away from him in the next game. "I'm taking it," she yells, whacking my uncle over the head and doing a little victory lap around the table while waving that package in the air like a torch. I cringe, knowing full well that there is not enough bleach in the world to wash that vision out of my eyes. Crazytown, meanwhile, is egging everyone on, pointing to various suspiciously shaped prizes and teasing about the wonders inside. I give her a good hard pinch on the thigh. "Could you quit encouraging them?" I say. Normally, I adore seeing my family devolve into savages. But now, I have to look away as my sister is climbing on top of the table to pry that tube out of my mother's lap where she's been hiding it. Oh, God, just the thought of that is giving me the yips. I retch a little when I hear someone yell, "I know you've got it down there somewhere," and I knock back another glass of champagne, convinced I am going to need therapy after this is all over. That tube of mystical pleasures is making its way through everyone's greedy little paws in a disgusting incestual daisy chain. It finally ends up with my 15-year-old cousin in the very last round, and she wins it. Everyone cheers then, and they begin unwrapping their prizes. I want to cover my eyes. I want to run screaming from the room. But Crazytown has my hand locked in hers and a wicked little smile plastered on her face. In any other setting, hell, on any other planet, what my family unwrapped would be the start of one seriously messed up swingers party. But no, my family is apparently monumentally naive or just utterly unobservant. My mom, for example, had won a vial of massage oil and was happily trying it out on her temples. My grandmother was across the table devouring a box of chocolates, completely oblivious to the fact that they're shaped like tiny little boobs. Meanwhile, my dad had unwrapped a roll of vivid red tape. Bondage tape, to be specific. But Crazytown had thoughtfully removed the label. "What's this?" he asks. And Crazytown, ever the diabolical little bitch, nonchalantly says, "Oh, that's just a special kind of tape. It only sticks to itself. It's great for holding things together." And then, of course, there was that fantastic tube-shaped package. I look away as my cousin opens it. I brace myself. I'm listening to the sounds of tearing paper, waiting for the inevitable gasps and disgust. And then I hear it. A delighted little shriek. I look up, and I see Hello Kitty. Or, to be more precise, I see Hello Kitty's head attached to a vibrating wand that also functions as a pen. Terrific. My damn girlfriend had just given my 15-year-old cousin a cock pen, and she had unloaded a perverted treasure trove of sex toys on the rest of my unwitting family. And I'll tell you, to this day, my dad still asks me if I know where to get any more of that non-stick tape. No, Dad. No, I do not. And it's this that I'm thinking of as I lead my guy into the bingo tent of our suburban carnival. We get situated among the countless little old ladies, the oxygen tanks, and the Rotary Club members, clearly the youngest in the room, and that's even taking the bingo cards into account. I couldn't find a delinquent or a hustler in the bunch. And that's when the perverted genius of Crazytown hits me, some 20 years too late, and I realize that sometimes you just have to bring your own crazy to the party, even if it comes in the shape of a cock pen. Bingo, y'all. Bingo. Now, y'all, my 100th episode is fast approaching, and I cannot wait to share it with you. But this being a rather big deal, 100 episodes and 2 years of podcasting calls for a little bit more than just an episode. So we're going to do it up big. Stay tuned for details because coming up in the next 2 weeks, we're going to be doing a live broadcast from the driveway. And better yet, we may just have a very special guest joining me. I'll be sure to give you all the details when they are finalized. But in the meantime, hope y'all have a great week. And don't miss episode 100 coming next Sunday. Until then, cheers, y'all.
Go to theunwritablерant.com and sign up to get early access to interviews and new videos. You can hear new episodes of The Unwritable Rant on radiovegas.rocks every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern and on IPMNation.com on Saturdays and Sundays at 6 p.m. Eastern. And hear best of episodes every weekday at 3 p.m. Eastern. And don't forget to connect with Juliette on Twitter at Morning Neurosis.
Girl, you was pretty as a Sunday morning, standing on the corner at Carondelet. What you say we make our way up to Bourbon, a couple hurricanes and a hand grenade, and get blown away. Let the chips fall where they may. If it's all the same, what you say, bon ton relay. Hey, pretty mama, I can smell the gumbo. Sweet as taste of honeysuckle on my lips. Good God Almighty, I can hear the trombone. Every heart ought to beat to a rhythm like this. Come a little closer, honey, let me hold you. Nothing tastes better than a bourbon kiss. You can be the flower on my magnolia. Every heart ought to beat to a rhythm like this.